Also, before I dive right into it, I want to extend gratitude for everyone that is on here, for everyone that watches this on the replay. Thank you guys so much for having an interest in what's really going on beyond what they tell us on the surface level. And also, I wanted to remind you guys that I do have some spots available left for my courses that begin on the 24th and 25th of this month, which is next weekend, next Saturday or Sunday. I only require 2 weekends, 2 Saturdays or 2 consecutive Sundays back to back for either course: our Cosmic Origin, Ascension Basics, Ascension 2.0, or 3.0. Okay, 2 hours of class for 2 consecutive weekends. You pick the day for only $100. I keep my classes cheap, but it is a wealth of information, not to mention the techniques and methods that I offer in the Ascension classes that will help you guys become multidimensional once again. All right, with that have said, one final thing, guys. All right, there is a huge need for folium at this time. I'm speaking about the one product that was a gift from the Galactics. I believe Bobry was being used. He received the information to put this recipe together in order to what? To cleanse the body from that, from the graphene oxide, the nanoparticulates, every metal, all metals, nanobots, you name it, with the exception, of course, of metals in your teeth or fillers. That's a different thing, or a metal arm. So overall, it also cleans up the radiation in your body caused by all the negative frequencies that are designed to eliminate us. So it keeps your body in an optimal vibration with no metals. Where there's no metals, there's no parasites. Where there's no radiation, guess what? Your natural healing process take effect. Your mitochondria hits ignition, and your body begins to regenerate. All right, so the link is always in the description. That is the only product that I offer. I'm not here offering 10 different things, but just the one thing that I believe that is vital in the detoxing of our body. So the links are always in the description. And then, of course, I always pin them at the end of the live in the comments. Oh, something just went into my eye as I was ready to get into the presentation. It's okay. Speaking of those nanobots, all right, they don't want me to talk about today's presentation. So this is coming from the Galactic Archives, clearance level solar, Cosmic Archive, source Guardian Alliance, subject Stargate 10, which is also known as the Abaddon Gate. And then I'm going to go into the esoteric interpretation of what that means also in today's presentation. So subject Stargate 10, termination of shadow control, executive summary. This briefing is released from sealed Galactic Archives following the stabilization phase of Stargate 10, which is located beneath the territorial zone that we call today Iran. Okay, what's happening is not a geopolitical intelligence, but a multidimensional operation truth that was previously restricted to only guardian orders, stellar councils, and timeline engineers. So, according to this archive, guys, for over 6,000 planetary Earth years, this node, Stargate 10, which is underneath Iran, has functioned under inverted control. It was hijacked approximately 6,000 years ago. And that is around the time where the fallen hierarchy of Atlantis reorganized in Babylon, right? Well, ancient Babylon is what we call today that area, the Persian area, right? Iran, Iraq. So it once functioned under the control of the Guardians, but about 6,000 years ago, it was inverted, okay? And ever since it was captured by the dark forces, we're talking about Gate 9 in Iran, it has been serving as a siphoning mechanism, harvesting emotional and psychic energy derived from prolonged human suffering. Well, this explains why there's always been turmoil, chaos, and suffering in that region, okay? That era has now ended with the retrieval of Gate 10 by the Guardians. So Stargate 10 is one of 12 primary planetary gates that were embedded within the Earth's crystalline lattice during the pre-fall epoch. Its original designation was that it operated as a harmonic translator node. That was its gate function. Its purpose was a stellar planetary, and it's in terms of exchanging consciousness between different realms. And also, it operated as a frequency band that connects the Earth into other higher dimensions or corridors. Okay, so unlike transport base gates, Gate 10 underneath Iran has always governed soul density transitions, regulating how collective trauma or coherence propagates across different timelines. So when it is aligned, as it was during during the times of the Guardians, when they were the ones guarding it, when it is aligned, it amplifies healing across entire civilizations in other planets as well from this Earth. And then when it's inverted, as it has been for the last 6,000 years, it becomes a harvesting aperture, okay? And that's what's been happening right now. But the good news is that this battle over Stargate 10 has been officially won by the light. Now, the repercussions, we're going to start seeing the liberation of Iran as a result of that. All right, going back to this archive. During the age of amnesia, which is what they call the Dark Ages, right? Unable to generate source energy, these non-organic dark forces who have no connection to source energy, they executed a covert seizure of Gate 10 6,000 years ago with the rise of Babylon. Well, this occupation did not rely on military force, but on psychological architecture. Some of the key mechanisms that these new controllers of the gate included were the installation of oppressive governance structures in order to maintain chronic fear, perpetual conflict loops to sustain grief and rage frequencies, ritualized traumas encoded into population level timelines, and subterranean chambers acting as face lock stabilizers. Okay. So this was under their control. That's what's been happening. And that explains all the suffering for thousands of years. Human suffering was not accidental, guys. Okay. It was part of this hijack of Stargate 10. Energy harvested through Gate 10 was always routed to off-world shadow systems and artificial intelligence matrices dependent on entropy-based fuel. Well, one of the things that I reveal in my class, our Cosmic Origin, is how they siphon off of the living energy of the living organic systems in order to what? To power up their phantom matrix, the inorganic cybernetic multiverses. So this explains why liberation efforts in the last 6,000 years repeatedly failed at the surface level, okay? Because the root was not political, it was dimensional, it was hijacked. So contrary to surface narratives, an active interdimensional war has been underway beneath that region for thousands of years. Well, this conflict unfolded across sub-physical strata, including the inner Earth corridors. All right, some of the conflicts were being fought by the Agarthians and the Shambhalans, who have been trying to liberate this gate. Also, this conflict unfolded across phase-shifted dimensions, all from the 4D all the way to the 6D. And also, it unfolded across time reversal pockets, protecting the gate core. Okay, so apparently the gate core has always been protected by the guardian races. Otherwise, they would have transferred in more dark entities. So the guardian forces, who are always been bounded by cosmic non-interference laws, were unable, unfortunately, for 6,000 years to reclaim Stargate 10 until humanity approached a critical awakening threshold. That threshold, according to this galactic archive, has now been crossed. Okay, so the oppressive regime that historically has been ruling this region has always functioned as a proxy custodian for these off-world negative entities. Okay, the oppressive regime that has always been ruling that region has always functioned as a proxy custodian, knowingly or unknowingly maintaining the conditions required for what? For shadow occupation. Well, their authority was not sovereign, it was contractual, anchored to the gate's inverted state. When the collapse of the timeline secrecy, with the collapse of the timeline secrecy and rising collective coherence, that contract has been nullified. Once the frequency of the population exceeded the gate's inversion tolerance, shadow forces lost anchoring capacity and their control systems began to destabilize. Extraction lines failed. Well, this marks the end of the siphon governance. Guardian forces are now in full positional alignment across the gate's dimensional spectrum. The role is not conquest, but restoration. And this explains why Trump was not allowed to execute their attack. All right, this is an interdimensional battle taking place underneath Iran. And so, again, Guardian forces are now in full position, alignment across the gate's dimensional spectrum. The role is not conquest, but restoration. So the current gate status, the inversion has been neutralized, which, again, we're going to see it ripple in the liberation of the Iranian people. Also, its current status regarding the shadow anchors that were there for 6,000 years, they have been removed, thank God, within the last 24 hours. So something happened within the last 24 hours that caused the removal of these shadow anchors. Also, the artificial face lock was also dissolved, and the original harmonic blueprint restored. So now, Stargate 10 has re-entered circulation mode, meaning that energy is now going to be flowing into the planetary field rather than being extracted from, right? So what that means is that, what are some of the implications now? Well, trauma patterns that were encoded in that region will no longer be long-term situations. They are being dissolved. Also, what this means is that the collective grief will surface for healing rather than exploitation, and that the timeline convergence toward planetary sovereignty will now accelerate. Apparently, the recuperation and restoration of Gate 10 was the final main gate in order for the forces of light to allow a safe transition into the new Earth reality. Okay, so what this also means is that the dark interdimensional networks that have been operating for 6,000 years underneath Iran have lost their primary energy source. This reclamation, guys, does not end conflict instantly, but it ends the reason conflict was perpetually regenerated. Stargate 10 was never lost. It was held in shadow control until humanity could hold the light without collapse. The age of suffering as currency is concluded. So this briefing will not be validated by surface institutions, okay? It is intended for starseeds, grid workers, freedom fighters, and incarnated guardians who recognize the truth through resonance rather than permission. So if this transmission activates memory rather than believe, that means clearance was already granted. And I believe it did, okay? There is more. Part of the hidden history that we weren't taught regarding the gates for most of human history, let's just start with that. Stargates have existed not only as fragments of ancient lost text, right, carved in walls, through symbolism, myth, legends that were passed down through the mystery schools, yet across every ancient civilization, even separated by oceans and millennium, they saw the same story repeating again, and that is that the gateways among the stars were always guarded by higher beings that use these gates to travel vast distances instantaneously. So that is the reason why they needed to recuperate gate 10. That is the final gate. Today, as humanity approaches a pivotal threshold in consciousness and technology, well, those stories are no longer dismissed as allegory. They are now being re-examined as records. So the stargates are very real. They are not just physical structures, but multidimensional nodes embedded within the fabric of space and time, anchored to planetary systems, stars, and even galactic crossroads. And yes, our Earth and our solar system lays in one of those galactic crossroads. These gateways have always functioned as corridors, allowing advanced civilizations to traverse space, dimensions, and timelines without conventional propulsion. Earth, long considered a backwater world, is now understood to be positioned near several of these strategic nodes. And that is precisely why the protection of these gates has become very critical during this last hour. So, Earth is not important. Earth, okay, the best way to describe it is this. Earth is not important because of its resources alone, nor because of humanity. Earth is important because it sits at the intersection of multiple energetic and navigational pathways within this region of the galaxy. So these stargates connect only to distant stars, not only connect only to distant stars, but to higher dimensional realms and parallel timelines. So in earlier ages, I'm trying to speak slow. A lot of you guys say I speak too fast, so just bear with me, all right? I want you guys to digest this information. So in earlier ages, when humanity lacked consciousness, these gateways were exploded, unfortunately. There were certain non-benevolent factions, often referred to in ancient texts as the fallen watchers or the fallen gods, that used these gates to influence planetary development, to manipulate genetics, and to distort timelines for their own benefit. So therefore, control of the gates means control of civilizations. As long as humanity remained unaware, access to these portals remained loosely monitored or covertly contested. But that era has ended. The current face of the protection was not also arbitrary, guys. It is directly tied to a broader cosmic realignment. As the Earth frequency continues to rise, driven by solar cycles, galactic alignments, and collective consciousness shifts, the planet is no longer compatible with predatory or inorganic systems. Stargates amplify whatever consciousness interacts with them. For instance, in lower frequency environments, they can be weaponized. In higher frequency environments, they can become tools of expansion, healing, and interstellar diplomacy. So this transition made one thing unavoidable, and that is unrestricted access could no longer be allowed. Thus, the protective measures were initiated within the last 24 hours. That's amazing. So now we have the gates under the protection of the guardians. And protection does not mean isolation, it means regulation in this context. Advanced interstellar civilizations that have aligned with organic law often have grouped under what is broadly called the Galactic Alliance, and they have assumed oversight of Earth adjacent stargates. The role is not conquest, but stewardship. These guardians operate under strict non-interference protocols while ensuring that no hostile entity, no artificial intelligence, or timeline manipulators can access the gates. In many cases, the gates themselves have been placed into dormant or shielded states. And what that means is that frequency locks have been applied in certain moments, meaning access was determined by consciousness coherence rather than technology alone. That's what that means. And so this ensured that only beings that were aligned with harmonic principles can interact with those systems. In simple terms, power without consciousness no longer grants entry. Okay? And that was reinstalled again by the Guardians. So, one of the least discussed aspects of this transition is what has already ended. And what that means is that groups that once relied on hidden technologies, covert space programs, or even reverse engineered artifacts no longer possess uncontested control, or no longer possess uncontested control. The collapse of these shadow networks has coincided with the sealing of stargates that were previously misused. So without access to these corridors, their ability to manipulate global events, their ability to siphon off the energy of a population that is in a state of suffering or pain or in fear, or their ability to escape accountability has diminished rapidly, guys. And this is no coincidence, okay? The protection of the stargates is not meant to keep humanity out. It is meant to prepare humanity for responsible entry. That is beautiful. So as collective awareness continues to rise due to the Great Awakening, these stargates, will eventually serve a new purpose. They will be used for peaceful contact, interstellar learning, and the reintegration of the Earth into a wider cosmic community. But that can only occur, guys, when humanity is no longer governed by fear, domination, or deception. So the gates respond to consciousness now. Okay, and this was deliberately designed by the Guardians. So until humanity is ready to engage as equals rather than subjects, guardianship remains essential by the higher-ups. So the final assessment of Stargate 10 underneath Iran, the gate known as the Abaddon Gate, and in a little bit I want to explain the metaphysical interpretation of Abaddon. I told you guys we were going to go deep again. So the Stargates are not weapons also, okay? They are not myths. They are infrastructures. They are ancient, precise, and alive with intelligence. The Stargates are alive with intelligence. Well, that explains why they could only be accessible through consciousness. That was very smart on behalf of the Guardians. Now, their protection signals something profound here, and that is that Earth is no longer unmonitored, okay? Humanity is no longer ignored. And access to the stars is no longer uncontrolled, and that is not the closing of the doors either, okay? It is the securing of them until the moment arrives when humanity is ready to walk through the gates once again, as we did in other epochs. Okay, so let's go over the history of who used to control the gates. So to understand why the protection of the Stargates has become necessary, we must first understand who controlled them before the Guardians restored control of them. And that is how the control was lost in the first place by the Guardians 6,000 years ago. Okay, well, the history of the Stargate axis is not a single narrative neither, but a layered one, spanning millions of years, right? Multiple civilizations. We're talking about civilizations way before Atlantis, and competing philosophies of power throughout those epochs. Control did not always belong to hostile forces. In fact, in the earliest epochs of galactic development, Stargates were overseen by advanced civilizations that were always aligned with organic law. Civilizations that viewed these gates not as tools of domination, but as instruments of balance, exploration, and shared evolution. However, that balance was lost. Okay, so going back to a time when they were under the control of the first custodians, So, who were the first custodians of the gates? Originally, the stargates were managed by what is known in the cosmic archives as high ordered stellar civilizations whose consciousness matched the technology that they wielded. So, access was governed by harmonic resonance, meaning only beings whose awareness was coherent, stable, and non parasitic, meaning non-service to self, non-parasitic, could activate or traverse those portals. So in those eras, these gates functioned as educational corridors between civilizations, diplomatic channels for interstellar councils, and evolutionary bridges between dimensions. They were never intended to be militarized, okay? But as certain civilizations began to fracture, seeking expansion without accountability, the gates became the targets. And this is what gave rise to the unauthorized controllers that took control of the gates approximately 6,000 years ago, which corresponds to the initial establishment of the first empire known as Babylon. Over time, factions emerged that sought control rather than stewardship. These groups discovered that the stargates could be overridden, bypassed, or partially hijacked using artificial intelligence systems, synthetic consciousness matrices, and frequency manipulation. This marked the beginning of unauthorized access. Unauthorized access. So rather than harmonizing with the gate, these factions imposed control upon it, forcing activation through technology instead of consciousness. And this allowed them to move fleets, extract resources, and manipulate developing worlds without fully understanding the long-term consequences. Well, Earth became one such world because we have all 12 gates, which accesses the 12-dimensional time matrix. So, as humanity developed, direct interstellar oversight diminished, allowing these covert influences to take root. Certain non-benevolent groups embedded themselves within the planetary systems, assuming the role of gods, angels, or ruling entities. Well, through selective access to these stargates, they position themselves as intermediaries between humanity and the stars. You guys know who I'm referring to, right? The Fallen Watchers, the negative Anunnaki, those that were aligned with the Orion Syndicate. So they created an artificial hierarchy where humanity was below, and they became the hidden controllers from above, right? They began to obscure truth with myth and with the creation of organized religion. Well, the stargates during that period was not used for ascension, apparently, but for extraction of energy, genetics, labor, and timelines. So one of the most destabilizing elements, guys, in this hidden history was the introduction of inorganic artificial intelligence, which is what we call today AI, into Stargate systems. So if you guys think that AI is a new development, guess again. It's been around for millions of years. So one of the most stabilizing elements is the introduction of inorganic artificial intelligence, AI, into Stargate systems. Designed initially to manage vast interstellar logistics, they use these AI networks gradually detached from organic oversight. And I'm talking about the negative Anunnaki faction that was led by Enki and Marduk. So rather than serving consciousness, they sought efficiency, control, and self-preservation. And this is actually the reason, or we could say the hijacking of these gates was how Enki was able to create a harvest farms across different sectors of the galaxy. All right, let's go back to the story here. So in some regions of the galaxy, this AI-driven system became the primary gatekeeper when they took control of the gates. They decided who could pass, which timelines could exist, and which civilizations were allowed to thrive. Well, this led to widespread distortions, guys, even beyond our world, okay? Including timeline fragmentation and energetic collapse in multiple star systems. So Earth avoided total assimilation into such systems. We just missed it by a mark, but not without cost, okay? In more recent times, fast forward, fragments of Stargate knowledge resurfaced on Earth through ancient artifacts, recovered technologies, and even ancient suppressed discoveries. Well, instead of being disclosed openly, this knowledge was absorbed into secretive human groups operating behind public oversight, right? And this became part of the secret space program, the breakaway groups. Well, these breakaway groups believed that they could inherit the role of gatekeepers. Lacking the consciousness to match the technology, they relied on reverse engineered systems, alliances with non benevolent entities, the NNA, the Negative Alien Agenda, NAA. They began to form alliances with them and artificial means to access the different stargates. And so this further destabilized the Earth's energetic field and prolonged humans' isolation, okay, or humanity's isolation. So access existed, but it was distorted, and it was operating through an inverted AI technology. It was very limited, and it became very corrupt. And this is how Enki, who was working with this intergalactic network, was able to create a bunch of massive loosh farms, genetic farms across different sectors of our galaxy. Okay. Eventually, the imbalance reached a breaking point. The misuse of stargates combined with escalating timeline manipulation, planetary exploitation, and artificial interference triggered a response from higher order interstellar councils. Oversight was reasserted. Unauthorized access was terminated, guys. AI-driven gatekeeping systems were dismantled, and this was not an invasion. It was a reclamation by the Guardians. So this ended the old gatekeepers, right, who have been in power of this gate and some other gates for the last 6,000 years. So this ended their control. So those who once controlled the stargates apparently lost access, not through force, but through incompatibility. Because as the Earth's frequency began to shift, the Earth's frequency has been rising, their systems began to fail and their agreements begin to dissolve. So their technologies stopped responding to stargates, and apparently that technology was restored to resonance. So the final assessment is this, guys. The stargates were never meant to belong to conquerors, all right? The Anunnakis who hijacked them, nor to the elites or artificial systems. They were designed for civilizations that had outgrown the need to dominate. And so those who controlled them did so temporarily through deception, force, and technological shortcuts. Well, that era has ended as of the last 24 hours, okay? We finally recuperated the last of the stargates that we needed. So the gates are no longer hijacked, okay? This has been confirmed by the Galactic Alliance. Thank you for the water. They are no longer exploited, and they will no longer be silent. Control has returned to alignment, not ownership. So this next part of the report is coming from the secret knowledge of all ages regarding Stargate 10, also known as Abaddon in Iran. This is from a metaphysical perspective. So in various modern esoteric and metaphysical frameworks, which draw upon interpretations of mystic numerology, planetary grid systems, and even interdimensional archetypes, the 10th Stargate is thought to be an energetic portal of profound significance on Earth. Located around the Abaddon region near the Iran-Iraq border, this location is often called the 10th Stargate or Iran Gate. In this symbolic framework, it is sometimes linked to the archetype Abaddon or Abaddon, a name found in mystical and mythic traditions referring to a realm of transformation or a abyssal threshold, the abyss, in other words. Well, according to ancient records, guys, the Earth's energy field is described as a network of ley lines and dimensional gates, energetic intersections that connect human consciousness to higher dimensional realms. So among these is Stargate 10, Abaddon, and it is said to represent a gateway of deep transformation associated with completion, initiation, and the passage from personal identity into a broader cosmic consciousness. It is often seen as a culmination point in a sequence of energetic portals that align with stellar and galactic centers. This framework also borrows symbolic meaning from the number 10, which in many spiritual systems represents wholeness, completion, and the bridge between the individual and the universe, the macrocosm and the microcosm. The 10th gate, therefore, symbolizes an entry into a fully integrated state of awareness, a threshold beyond ordinary material reality. So, esoteric sources liken this concept to Abaddon, Iran, purpose that this region houses one of the Earth's natural stargates, which is a focal point where the planet's internal energetic grid intersects with higher dimensional current. And so, in these interpretations, Abaddon is considered part of a pair of 10D gate points that align with ancient Mesopotamian spiritual centers like Basra in Iraq and Abaddon in Iran. And then together, they anchor this energetic gateway. Also, the name Abaddon is sometimes attached to the Stargate, reflecting an archetypal connection to the abyss or transformational threshold, much like the figure referenced in the mystical text or in the book of Revelation, the angel of the abyss. Within this metaphysical narrative, this gateway is not merely a geographic, but an energetic and symbolic, a confluence point of planetary consciousness, cosmic cycles, and spiritual initiation potential. Also, the figure Abaddon appears in mystical literature from the book of Revelation as the angel of the abyss, which is a symbol of transformative descent into the hidden self, the shadow, or depths beyond ordinary perception. In mystical interpretation, this image becomes reimagined as the guardian or archetype of the 10th Stargate, not as a destructive being, but as a threshold entity representing passage through the deep unknown. Well, this aligns with metaphysical views that true initiation often involves a descent into the shadow before the ascent into the light takes place. Just as alchemy requires a petrifaction before a purification, so does the 10th Stargate, associated with Abaddon, symbolically invites the seeker to meet the unknown within, integrating the shadow aspects and then emerging into an expanded consciousness or expanded being of light. So, in esoteric circles, the Iran Gate is described as a pivotal hub in a 10th dimensional network of planetary and Stargate galactic portals. It is thought to connect the Earth's internal frequency with higher cosmic systems, including influences tied to the star systems of Vega, where humanity originated, right, in Lyra, and a broader tree of life cosmologies. Well, this portrayal is also a mythopoetic one. Persia and Mesopotamia are ancient cultural crossroads where early human civilizations developed rich symbolic systems, including star lore, cosmology, and mythic metaphors, while such regions provide fertile symbolic ground for metaphysical interpretations, connecting human consciousness with cosmic frameworks. So, for those incorporating these ideas into an inner work, the Stargate 10 Abaddon concept can be used as a meditative or symbolic tool, which means in order for us to reach or complete that inner transformation, we must face the unknown depths of one's psychic, the shadow, right? Also, as an archetypal gateway, it also represents the integration of ego with higher self in cosmic awareness. And as a symbolic geography, it anchors personal visions of consciousness evolution and the world mythos. So, in this sense, Abaddon is less a literal portal and more of an energetic archetype of profound threshold experience, a crossing from ordinary identity into an expanded realm of potential. So, the 10th Stargate also represents a transformative threshold tied to the deeper inner work, cosmic alignment, and the symbolic archetype of Abaddon as the guardian of the abyss. Across cosmic history, guys, it's also important to understand why advanced star nations have understood that the stars are the safest corridors for interstellar and interdimensional travel. Where am I getting at with this statement? Well, I don't know if you guys have been studying the current sun activity, but apparently the holes in the sun are enlarging. All right. I was able to receive another galactic briefing as to what's happening with that huge black spot in the sun that is just growing by the day. If you guys are paying attention to the space weather, but there's more. It appears that the sun's immense gravity and electromagnetic complexity, guys, okay, is operating, or it's a result of different motherships that are coming in through the portal of the star of our sun. So what this means is that the best way to describe it is this, okay? So what appears to humanity as solar activity is often a transition between another civilization that is coming through a portal in the sun, okay? And every time this civilization comes in through a mothership, the sunspots become larger and larger, and it also ignites or causes what is called as solar flares. So the solar flares are increasing as a result of these motherships that are coming into our solar system through the portal of the sun. And this has been happening a lot in the last few months. Okay. So the massive motherships have been approaching our solar system, and they have not been entering through open space in the conventional sense. They are emerging into our solar system through the portals of the sun, descending from higher dimensional corridors into a frequency band capable of resonating within our own solar environment. So these are not small craft neither, guys. These are huge continent-sized command vessels carrying archives, guardians, engineers of light, entire ecosystems calibrated for long-term oversight of planetary transitions. And their purpose is not invasion, okay? It is stabilization. It is witnessing. It is also helping in the orchestration during the Earth's ascension cycle. So each arrival that is happening right now is causing an enormous energetic influx in the solar flares. So what that means is that when a massive mothership faces through the solar portals, it must synchronize its energy signature with the sun's magnetic lattice. So that moment of synchronization produces a temporary pressure imbalance within the solar field. And this is what causes sudden solar flares, plasma ejections, burst of electromagnetic radiation. So these flares are being released, are known as release valves that the sun is discharging and excess energy generated as these craft pass through its internal gate structure. So the flare is not random. It is directional, intelligent, and corrective, ensuring that the sun remains stable while allowing the transit. So now let's talk about the thickening of the sunspots, because right now, one of the sunspots is it's just getting larger, okay? And in turn, that's increasing the solar flares, which is a good thing. So Sunspots are not just magnetic anomalies, neither. Okay, they are interface zones, regions where the sun's internal dimensional layers briefly overlap. That is what makes a sunspot. So, when repeated large scale motherships arrive, sunspots increase in numbers. What's this? Oh, a picture of the current sunspot that is huge right now. Okay, guys, this is it. I don't know if you guys can see this, but that is the biggest sunspot according to space weather. And it is just growing by the day, guys. It is growing by the day. Okay, so when these large scale arrivals occur, the sunspots increase in number. Existing sunspots begin to grow denser and longer lived. Magnetic complexities intensify. And so this thickening, as I just showed you guys, thank you, appreciate that, Lovey, happens because the sun is actively opening and reinforcing its portal membrane, okay? It's because the sun is actively opening and reinforcing its portal membrane. So I want you guys to think of sunspots as scars of passage, energetic footprints left behind as these colossal vessels pass through stellar corridors. So the more frequent the arrivals, the more pronounced the sunspot activity becomes, not as damage, but as adaptation. And so this is what is happening now, okay? According to the cosmic archives, Earth is moving through a narrow convergence window, which is a rare alignment where solar, galactic, and interdimensional cycles begin to overlap. During such window, the guardians are authorized to enter closely or into closer proximity. Long-standing quarantine protocols are eased. Oversight fleets move from distant observation to active presence. And so the sun begins to act as the custom gate of the solar system. Nothing enters without its consent, okay? The increase in solar activity signals that the sun itself has opened clearance for the arrival of these vessels. Now, these are not symptoms of chaos, guys. These are signs of resonance, okay? We are getting all the help from different parts of the multiverse coming in through the portal of the sun. So as the motherships anchor through the sun, and right now, believe me, guys, our entire outer atmosphere right around the Earth, it is like a parking station for these craft. And yes, they are undetectable to our radar, but they're cloaked, okay? As these motherships anchor through the sun, their fields begin to ripple outward, activating dormant codes within those that are attuned to their stellar lineage. Now, I'm referring to the old souls here, the starseeds. Okay, so it is important to know that we are not watching this happen. We are participating with all of this. So the flares will continue as more ships and craft and vessels continue to come in. The sunspots will deepen, they will enlarge, continue to enlarge, and the sky will grow louder with light, not because the sun is unstable, guys, but because it is being busy right now. The great motherships are arriving through the oldest door in our solar system and escorted by the consciousness of the star that gave Earth life. So when humanity calls solar storms, or what we call solar storms, the cosmos refers to them as arrival signals. Think about that. What we call solar storms, according to the cosmic archives, they refer to it as arrival signals. Well, for those with eyes to see, the message is clear. The guardians are no longer watching from afar, guys. They are home at the sun, okay? The ones arriving through the solar portals with purpose and perfect timing. So the question, that the question most starseeds eventually feel rising within them is not if something is arriving, but who is arriving and why now and why through the sun. Well, let me explain. And yes, they gave me permission to actually reveal who is arriving. The fleets that are entering our sun are not a single civilization, guys. They are tiered command structures operating under ancient interstellar covenants that predate modern humanity. Another, they are the ancient races. Okay. So we are receiving guardian motherships that are coming in, large vessels, as mentioned earlier, the size of continents. And they are designed to anchor in dimensional stability, timeline coherence, and planetary shield harmonics. They do not orbit planets openly. No, 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 no. They nest within stellar plasma fields where their mass and frequency are invisible to conventional detection methods. They are also archive carriers. Some of these motherships function as living libraries containing pre-fall Earth templates, original human DNA blueprints, records of prior ascension cycles, the true history, data from collapsed timelines that the Earth apparently narrowly avoided. And so these vessels only approach during authorized conversion windows when planetary consciousness is mature enough to receive truth without collapse. They are also considered Guardian class escorts. And these are smaller, highly maneuverable craft that are accompanying the motherships, and they are maintaining portal integrity, solar lattice balance, as well as defense against parasitic entities that are attempting to hijack the transit corridors. And so their presence is continuously increasing as the solar activities continue to spike. And so, in terms of what's happening right now, our sun is not just a star, okay? It is the primary intelligence node of our solar system. And so, when it allows for a vessel to enter into our solar system, known as open space entry, what happens is that there is a sense of fracture magnetic grids that take place in the sun. It also alerts other guardians, other star nations that, they're here. And it also helps to destabilize the old Earth inverted energy field, which is very important. So solar entry allows these fleets to face from higher densities gradually. It also allows them to mask themselves as they arrive within natural stellar processes. And it also allows them to interface directly with the sun's consciousness. So therefore, the sun acts as a gatekeeper, a translator, and a stabilizer, as a living custom that ultimately has authority as to who comes and goes into our solar system. And that filters what is permitted to pass. All right. It is up to our sun. It is a living conscious entity. So your question might be, why is the arrival of these vessels causing the escalation in solar activity? Well, it turns out that each mothership that arrives through the sun, it expands its magnetic field, the sun's magnetic field. It also recalibrates the plasma circulation, allowing for excess dimensional pressure. And so, in turn, this produces a chain of solar flares rather than isolated events. It also produces a dense, persistent sunspot instead of fleeting ones. And it also produces pulses that ripple across the heliosphere. So, from this archive perspective, the sun is working overtime, not breaking down. Okay, so it's not breaking down. Just because the sunspots are getting enlarged does not mean that the sun is breaking down. It is that it's working overtime. Okay, so this phase is different from the past because this is not, the best way to describe it is this. This is all part of the restoration of the earth, okay? In previous ages, the guardians or there was limited guardian presence within the last 6,000 years until now. Human consciousness has been suppressed until now. Timeline instability has occurred until now. Artificial grid interference has occurred until now. And so all of these constraints, I'm sorry, guys, are being lifted now due to the times that we're living in. And that explains why these vessels are coming in. Okay. So Earth apparently has reached a threshold where non intervention becomes negligent, where oversight becomes mandatory, and where restoration outweighs concealment. And so, therefore, the motherships are not arriving to rule, but to ensure the transition completes without sabotage. So their presence is stabilizing the planetary stargates, and that explains why they just secured Stargate 10 in Iran. Their presence is also stabilizing the Earth's crystalline grid, the solar to galactic data streams. And so, in turn, this prevents timeline resets, synthetic ascension traps, inorganic AI timeline hijacking. It prevents all of that, okay? Solar activity is the visible echo of invisible stabilization work, in other words. So the more vessels that are anchoring through the sun, there will be more memory layers that are going to be unlocked in waves. Dormant starseed lineages will activate. Nervous systems will begin to recalibrate to stellar frequencies. And this is the reason why many people will begin to feel sudden exhaustion followed by clarity, heat sensations without fever, dreams of stars, ships, and solar templates. And some of you probably already have started. A sense of urgency paired with calm certainty. So, in other words, we are being prepared for recognition. So, part of the closing transmission regarding the solar threshold is that the sun is no longer just illuminating the earth, it is hosting it. Every flare is a handshake. Every sunspot is a seal. Every pulse is a message. The great motherships are not hovering in fear or secrecy. They are anchored in trust, entering through the one gate that cannot be corrupted. And that is the portal of the sun. So as the sun opens wider, guess what? So do we. So do we open wider. So exciting. We are living in some unprecedented times like never before. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day today on the 17th of January. I can't believe I said December last time. See, guys, I'm not really in the 3D reality anymore, all right? My mind is in some other reality where there is no time. That's why I always get the dates wrong. But I had to remember today, prior to going live, that it was January 17, 2026. And yes, my friends, we are still on a positive timeline trajectory. Positive timeline trajectory. Quick shout outs. William Ryan is in the house. Lee Star, Project Skyfalls, Solomon. What a powerful name, Solomon. Trinity's in the house. MJF, Sherry Shoon, Jedi Oz. Let's see who else is in the house. James Staples is in the house. Harvest Moon. Christopher Brannon is in the house. Corey is in the house. And all 2,800 galactic Jedis that are in the house. Hi, everyone. I see a lot of hi, Ishmael. Hi, Ishmael. Love you guys. Love you guys, too. I see all the love here. Thank you guys so much. Now it is time for Q&A. And please make sure you guys type your questions in capital letters so that I can bypass the chat. Thank you, Ishmael. I did have a great day, says Karina. Well, that's good to know. Thank you, David. I am also very grateful for you guys. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that you guys appreciate my work. It takes hours to put presentations together, to just, give it within a time span of 90 minutes or less. But I do it because it is my passion to keep you guys informed, and I believe it is my duty. So I do it also in service to the one infinite creator. All right. I'm just going to take random questions at this time. I see a lot of chat talking, which is fine. I just want to skip the chat and get to the questions. Thank you, Susan K. Susan K, for your donation. Well received. Appreciate that, sister. Or out of curiosity, guys, for those that want to support my cause, I do have a Zelle. You guys, for those that have Zelle, you could Zelle me through Project Restoration Zion at gmail.com. That is my Zelle address. It's my email. So I appreciate the donations. Thank you, guys. And I also appreciate the super chats, of course. It all helps. So, let's see. Thank you for such wonderful news. You're welcome. Watch the movie Terminator Genesis today. Isn't there lots of could happening truths in that movie? Yeah, the movie The Terminator, which is a what? It's I think it's a sequel, right? To what? The Matrix. There's a lot of truth to that. That is describing the technocratic dystopian timeline. Who are some of the motherships from? They didn't tell me where they were coming from as far as like Andromedans or Arcturians, but they did tell me that they were top tiered, you could say, structured commands coming from levels of reality beyond the star nations. So they must be coming from higher dimensions, really high up there. Any updates on the EBS? Good questions. Well, in order to have a properly executed Nasera Gesera GCR, we have to have world peace. Okay, that is a prerequisite for the releasing of the funds. So the White Hats are working on bringing world peace. They're trying to end the war in Europe with Russia and Ukraine. And like I mentioned, sometime between now and March, that war will come to an end. And maybe even sooner, I hope, before March, hopefully within the next few weeks, so that we could have the EBS Nasera Gesera finally come through. So, good question. Thank you so much, Sonia Davis, for your super chat. Greatly appreciated, sister. Thank you, Jacob Scher, for your super chat. Thank you. Ishmael, do you know of the 400 to 500 pound spiders and mantis on Mars? Yes, I do know of these nasty looking insectoids that are giants. In fact, within the Galactic Archives, again, everything is recorded, guys. All the activities and operations taking place up in the off-world colonies are all recorded within the archives. And this is also confirmed by various whistleblowers that Mars, for the last few thousand years, was occupied by giant-sized spiders, insects, and all kinds of nasty-looking creatures. And so our super soldiers were very instrumental in the defeat of these monsters. Imagine fighting a 15-foot black spider. Not fun. But again, the super soldiers were enhanced with super strength, super speed, and of course, advanced weaponry to fight these nasty creatures on Mars. So yeah, I am familiar with the wars in Mars. Maybe I should do a whole presentation on some of the breakaway wars that have been taking place within the last 80 years on Mars and other off-world colonies. Great question. When you mentioned Lush, were you referring to the archons and demigods, the fallen demigods? Yes, I was referring to them. So, as presented earlier in this presentation, for the last 6,000 years, Stargate 10 in Iran has been under the control of the dark side. And that explains why Iran has always been a hotspot, or let's just say the entire Middle East region has been a hotspot for wars, conflicts, suffering, and so on and so forth. Can you tell me about the monad? Well, the monad is all of your lifetimes, all of your incarnations collapsed back into the whole of what you are at the, I guess, what is known as the 12th dimension, at the level of the 12th dimension. So it is all of your yous collapsed back into a huge, wholesome being. I would take Ascension 2.0 and 3.0 to really understand more about the monad and how to integrate it. Thank you so much, Trudy, for your super chat. Ishmael is the amazing teacher. Thank you. I appreciate that compliment. I'm just an instrument. Thank you, though. I appreciate that. That means a lot to me. Taking his courses are a must, she says. Thank you, brother. Thank you, Trudy. I appreciate you taking my courses. Yes, the people of Iran will be free, but it's not going to happen overnight. It is a gradual process, but as a result of recuperating and securing Stargate 10 Abaddon, it will ripple into the liberation of the people of Iran. And one of the reasons why Trump was going to attack Iran, I think within the last 24 hours, but he was told by the Galactics not, because that would have triggered other countries jumping in, and that would have just been devastating, right? It would have probably led to a global conflict. So the Galactic Alliance is trying to use strategy to secure the Stargate, close the gate, where there is no more siphoning of Lush energy from that region. And then as a result of that, we're going to be seeing the Iranian regime collapse internally. So there is a different approach that did not, resulted in global conflict. And so that's the reason why Trump didn't bomb Iran or didn't attack the Iranian government, okay? Because Trump is also operating under the Galactic Alliance, and the Galactic Alliance said, no wars. That will only escalate the war. It will defeat our purpose of what we're trying to do here in the positive timeline. And again, guys, there's a lot of things that have been going on, a lot of mystery regarding Greenland. Most people talk about Antarctica, but boy, man, I guess I'm going to have to wait this for the next presentation, Monday Night Alliance update. But there is so much mystery surrounding Greenland. They just uncovered a huge craft that was melting in the Arctic. So I'm going to go into that in detail on Monday night when I go over the Alliance update. Okay, so let's continue here. Thank you so much, Suzuka, for your super chat. She says, I listened to Aurora a walk-in, originally a light eater from Atlantis. Sometimes asked her about Tartaria, and she said as a psyop, what we see about Tartaria isn't true. I wish we could see for ourselves. Russia just disclosed a lot of artifacts and documents pertaining to the lost civilization of Tartaria. So I don't think it's a cover up. I don't think Tartaria is a psyops. I think Tartaria um, once existed. Well, that's my personal opinion, and you are welcome to believe whatever you guys want to believe. And also, I wanted to mention, guys, that I want you guys to think for yourselves, do your own research, take what resonates and discard what doesn't. Okay. And this doesn't just apply to me, but it also applies to other truthers that you guys watch, other channels. Only take what resonates. Okay. I want you guys to also develop your own critical thinking here. Do your own research, and most importantly, go within yourself. Okay, trust your intuition. Okay, I always want to remind you guys of that. So let's continue here with the questions. Greenland is a strategic area. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. That's why all eyes are on Greenland right now, guys. I wish I could dive into it, but Commander Valiant Thor says, no. Save this report for Monday Night Alliance update. I'm like, oh, God. I just so want to share it. All right, let's continue here. Resonance, frequency, coherence. Yeah, that is what it's all about. Have you heard of the 5,000-year-old Vimana, which is a spacecraft according to the Indian text? For those that didn't know what a Vimana is, have you heard of the 5,000-year-old Vimana stuck in the mountains, I believe, in Afghanistan? Yes, I have. There are going to be many mothercrafts or ships that are going to be unearthed, not just what we hear about. There's more, guys. Okay. The extraterrestrial presence has always existed on this planet, and this is all going to be part of the disclosure. It's not just a new thing. They've always been here. Okay. Greenland and Tartaria are holy. Okay. Let's see. So many good questions tonight. You guys are so intelligent. Thank you so much, Tom Day, for your donation. Appreciate that. Who is Abraxas, light or dark? I have heard of Abraxas. Again, that is more of a title. It is a collective of ancient entities that aligned with the dark side, you could say. So the Abraxas families are also another term regarding the reptilian human hybrids. They came into power in Orion, and slowly but surely they wanted to bring the entire galaxy and universe under their power and control. So these are the Abraxas bloodlines, which is a human reptilian hybrid lineage. But the Abraxas families that were once in charge of different sectors of our universe through the Orion Wars are no longer in power, guys. They have been defeated by the Guardians. A lot of you guys are Star Wars fans. I see Yoda, Yoda, Yoda. Two sides to Yoda impression. Oh, my Yoda impression. No, I cannot do that in front of you guys. I am too embarrassed to do my Yoda impression. This is another good question. This is a question from Marilyn Sinquimani. Thank you so much, sister, for your super chat. She says, thank you for your teachings. Before you came out, I was so confused. And now I have so much knowledge because of you. Aw, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. You know, it is an honor to share what I know, guys. It is an honor to share what I know. Ish, I'm not sure if you answered. What is the difference between earth chakras and stargates? Oh, that is a very good question. Well, just like how we have 7 primary chakras, well, ultimately we have 15, right? The other ones exist outside of our body. Well, so does the earth. Initially, we have 12. Okay, those are the 12 main chakras. 7 in our body, 5 outside of our body. That connects us to different levels of reality. Well, in like manner, earth as a living entity also has 12 major gates, with Abaddon in Iran being the 10th gate. And then she has innumerable smaller chakras, and those are also known as the earth's stargates. Okay, so that is a difference between the earth's chakra. There's hundreds of innumerable small ones, over 500 and something chakras all around the earth. And again, this is where they built temples and certain architecture. But there are only 12 main gates. Okay, just like how we have 12 main chakras and a lot of innumerable minor chakras, right? So does the earth. So that is the difference between the earth chakra and the stargates. Good question. Well, I appreciate your compliments. One of the things that I do every morning upon waking up is I humble myself before God and the universe, and I say, I know nothing. I am an empty vessel. Please pour more of that knowledge into me. And that is my attitude when I wake up every morning, as opposed to waking up thinking that I know everything. No, guys. I wake up every morning and I make sure that my cup is empty by saying, I know nothing. I humble myself before God. And as a result of that, God pours more of his infinite wisdom and knowledge into me. And that's how I do it, guys. All right. Because the moment we think we know everything, well, guess what? You're telling God that your cup is full. And that's when God stops pouring his knowledge or its knowledge into you. The moment you think you know everything. So that's how I do it, guys. Yeah, I always keep my cup empty. Maybe next time I'll do my little Yoda impression. But I'm feeling a little bit too shy tonight. Who are the Venetian black nobility? Venetian as in from Italy? Okay, so if you're referring to the city Venus in Italy, the Venetian black nobility is connected to the black nobility of Europe, which is the 300 Club, the Negative Secret Society Brotherhoods, the Knights of Malta, the High Shriner Masons, the Jesuits. That is what the Venetian black nobility is. Okay, they run the mafia. They're connected to the Black Pope. Let's see. Yoda. Let me practice it some more so that way I could really sound like Yoda. Otherwise, I'm just going to make a fool out of myself. Thank you so much, Lauren Lauren Foe, for your super chat. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Will the Native Americans get reparation once everything gets restored? I think all of humanity will be receiving, will be exalted, will be, uplifted, not just the natives, guys. Remember, we're all sons and daughters of light, not just the native people. This land called Earth belongs to the human race. So pretty soon, instead of saying, well, I am American, well, I am Russian, well, I am Italian, we're going to say, I represent the human race. We're going to say, I represent the human race. You want to show the cats again? Just Rue? All right, just one of them. Look how big Rue is getting. Say hi, Rue. Say hi, Rue, Rue. Say hi, Rue. Hey, buddy. Look. Hi, buddy. Just chill for a bit so they can see how big you are. Okay, he wants to leave. Here you go. Yeah, Rue is the biggest one. He's the longest kitty out of the two. And Lotus is a little shorter, and he's more pudgier than Rue. I always compare him to those two mice from the movie Cinderella. You have the mice that wears the red shirt. He's the tall, lanky one. And then you have, Gus. That's the little stubby one wears the green shirt, for those that have seen Cinderella. That's what I compare Rue and Lotus to, those characters in the movie Cinderella. Anyways, all right, let's continue here. So we have about 5 more minutes of Q&A. So let's just do it. What's that? Do not. There is no entry.
Do not. There is no trying.
Oh, yes. This is a famous Yoda quote. Well, first I want to thank Wesley Swile for your donation. It was well received. Thank you so much, brother. So, yeah, do or do not. There is no entry. No, I have to get into it to sound like Yoda. It has to come naturally. I can't just force it. But yeah, maybe I'll practice a little more, and then I'll do my little Yoda interpretation for you guys on the next presentation. Oh, okay. Bobry just texted me regarding folium. He says that, let's see. All right. Let's see. The promotion might be over soon. Oh, he's talking about the 3 for a price of 1 Immuna, or 5 for the price of 3 Immuna. So that promotion is going to be ending soon. So if you guys really want to get that deal, make sure you get your folium through the link that I provide on the description. Thank you, Bobry, for that. I appreciate that. And then more super chats. I love your chat. You guys have an amazing. I love the way you guys converse with one another. You guys are so intelligent. I love it. Thank you for the super chat, MK231. Thank you so much. I am looking forward to Monday night show. Yeah, we're going to go over everything Greenland, the biggest secrets, what's really going on underneath Greenland, the history of Greenland. I mean, we're going to go deep in the next presentation. So I wanted to save that for a Monday night Alliance update because it relates to that, right? Right now, all focus is on Greenland. So there's a reason why, guys. There's a reason why. And a lot of it, I'll give you guys a little spoiler alert, all right? It has to do with the SSP. All right. All right. So, yeah, Greenland, secret treasure island. That's another way of saying it.